Captain, we have them. We've established Transporter Lock, the Star Trek podcast. Join Ken and Sabriel each week as they explore strange new episodes, seek out new plots and new characters, and boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
Hello and welcome to Transporter Lock. Oh gosh. Okay, I'm your host, Captain Sabriel Masson, and joined with me, as always, usually sometimes, my co-host, Chief Engineer Ken Gagney. Hello, Ken.
Hello, Captain Sabriel. Here we are at the end of the road not taken.
We are here to talk about The Last Generation, but before that, I think we have some news. Particularly, we got a trailer for Strange New Worlds Season 2, or a teaser. That's a trailer.
It's true, and I haven't watched it because, as you know, I hate spoilers.
Oh, man. You're missing some good times. Like, you're going to see Pike is coming back.
What? Spoiler.
We're getting the Doctor.
What?
Not the Doctor. The Doctor.
Wait,
no.
Doctor Who?
No, not a Doctor. No. M'Benga's coming back. We got whole crew's coming back. And so, or are they? And you're going to have a good time.
Well, we know that it's been almost a year since I've seen the show, so I've already forgotten all the characters' names. We know that one of the characters went off to help some orphan find her parents, and we also know that number one got arrested. So we know from the previous clip from season 2 that the person has finished helping the orphan, has come back. But now you're saying everybody's come back to number one as well?
You're like me and dude, what did what? Gal, what did what? Khan?
Yeah, Noonien Singh. Yeah.
There. She's probably coming back.
We know she is, but what about number one?
Yeah. Probably coming back.
Probably. Okay.
Who knows in what capacity? I'm not telling you.
Tease.
Let's see.
And we also got some information about Section 31.
Oh, yes, we got a Paramount Plus movie coming out, starring Michelle Yeoh.
I wonder if this is instead of the Section 31 series.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably were very non-committal. If we look back in the language, maybe we all assumed it was going to be a show. Maybe they did say show. Maybe we all assumed it. We're all good at giving our own best hopes up.
I mean, if what they said was Section 31 spinoff, then this fulfills that promise. I haven't gone back to look at the original language. But a movie is just 50% longer than an episode.
Yeah. Maybe it's all we need. A lot of people are, honestly, a lot of the community really hates Section 31. They don't find it interesting at all.
I don't like how open they were about it in Discovery, because this is supposed to be like subterfuge and clandestine, and it was just out in the open on Discovery. That was weird.
I mean, I would say don't put the DS9 values on a show that takes place a hundred years ago before that.
I'll do what I want. Don't tell me what to do.
Oh man, there is one thing I really wish I could tell you about Strange New Worlds trailer. I won't. That's all the news I got.
Yeah, I think that's all I got, except that Picard is done. It's complete. It's final.
Yeah, I was kind of dreading the finality of it, not the final episode, but the finale, the finality of the series finale.
Yeah, when TNG went off the air back in 94, we knew that we were going to be getting movies, and we got 4 movies. And now we probably will not get a TNG movie. We'll probably not get another series. We probably won't get a reboot. Like, this really is the end. And maybe we already thought that when Nemesis came out, but yeah, there's no more after this.
The Last Generation.
The Last Generation, yeah.
These characters these characters could still show up, but they won't be in their own thing. Probably.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned last week that this episode would likely create a lot of opportunities for spin-offs, and that is true, and we will talk more in detail about that. But I think this was also a passing of the torch in much the way that we didn't see the TNG cast do so in the movies, because, yeah, I mean, there was no Next Generation. They didn't set that up with that purpose, other than if you consider like the brief TNG DS9 crossovers.
Right. And DS9 and Voyager. That was the only torch bearing that it did.
Yeah, and then Riker showed up briefly on Voyager and Enterprise, but that whole Enterprise finale was a disappointment. I think everybody knows that now.
Unlike this one, should we get to it? We probably have a lot to say.
Yeah. Well, let me back up a bit. Something I should have said last week is the cast of this show spent 8 episodes protecting Jack from the Changelings, from the Shrike. You know, the Changelings wanted to get him and hand him over to the Borg. We didn't know that at the time, but that was their goal. And we spent 8 episodes protecting him and preventing that from happening. And then as soon as Jack finds out he has Borg technology in him, he hands himself over. He undoes everything that everybody was fighting for 8 episodes. And, you know, he has his reasons, and whether or not we agree with them, they are reasons. But, you know, in hindsight, I didn't realize how disappointed I was in him when you and I last spoke. But I am disappointed in him.
Not gonna lie, even after all 10 episodes, I still don't care about Jack/Fox one bit. I don't care about him at all.
Did you say Jack/Fox?
Yeah, it says his Borg name.
Oh, Vox, right. Sorry. Yeah, gotcha. Also, when they were analyzing his DNA last week, they said, oh, Locutus was a receiver. That's why they could hear his voice after all this time. Whereas Jack, he's a transmitter. But Jack could also read people's thoughts and know, like, to touch their hand when he was hitting on them.
Oh, yeah,
so he was a sender and a receiver. He was both.
I hadn't thought of that. Huh.
Yeah.
Oops.
And one more thing about the show as a whole, all 10 episodes. In some of the previous podcast episodes, I had mentioned, they probably did the intro credits at the end just for the first episode. They'll probably move to the beginning eventually. And they didn't, which I didn't realize until like this week, that them keeping the credits at the end actually solved a problem I was having. You and I had talked about how I often skip the credits because it says who the guest stars are and it ruins the surprise.
I thought that was the very first episode. Ken's going to love this.
Yeah, for some reason I didn't realize it. But imagine if, like in episode 6 or whatever it was, if the show had opened with guest starring Professor Moriarty. You know, like that would not have been fun for us. So I'm really glad that they moved the credits to the end, and I'm really glad that they kept them there.
Yeah, they definitely did that on purpose too. Like a lot of thought went into that. Good on them.
Yes. Okay, so that's all me catching up on stuff that I should have said before. Where would you like to start with this week?
Right away at the beginning, I did not expect an appearance by Walter Koenig.
Yeah. When I was listening to his voice, it was, as you said, it was a verbal appearance only. And I wasn't clear if it was the character from TOS, but eventually he said, like, if my father was here. So I assume it's Chekhov Jr. Oh,
yeah, because Walter Koenig's voice or character is Pavel Chekhov. This is Anton Chekhov, a nod to Anton Yeltsin, who died. Anton from the movies.
I didn't realize that. I knew that the name Anton was a Star Trek name, and I just, without thinking, thought it was Chekhov's name. But you're right, of course. It's Pavel Chekhov. So you're right. This isn't even Junior. This is the next generation.
Yeah, I see Yeltsin. Anton Yeltsin.
That's really cool. I'm glad that they did that in that way.
Yeah. It was a nice little surprise and a nice little nod. Another nod to Anton.
Especially in an episode called The Last Generation. I mean, you can't get much more Last Generation than those old scientists.
Right. TOS, I know. TOS. That was really cool. It was just like blew me away right away.
And then one of the characters said, if Earth... Oh, I think that was Crusher who said, if Earth falls, everything falls. And I was like, that's a little anthrocentric.
I kind of giggled at that scene. Like, everyone like, oh, wait, we have to do our what's the word? Our exposition. Everyone had their one line to tell us what we might have forgotten since the last episode. Mm-hmm. And the setup for this one. It makes you giggle.
But I can also imagine the council on Vulcan hearing her say, if Earth falls, everything falls. And the Vulcan's like, excuse us, we matter too. Like, if Vulcan falls, nobody gives a shit. If Andoria falls, whatever. But if Earth falls, that's the end game right there.
And clearly, it doesn't matter because when they left the Federation in the future, Federation is still around.
Yeah, we know everything's going to be fine, but except maybe for Romulus,
right,
which is not Federation. But
let's see. I'm scrolling through the memory alpha here. Like Worf says, space dock is defenses and space dock. You know what? Honestly, the first 2/3 of this episode was all action movie. We got our quips, our one-liners, like, and I will make it a threesome. Do you even hear yourself right now?
I love that Riker and the writers for this show can inject levity even in those dark moments. That's not something we ever would have seen in TNG or even DS9.
That was, I mean, and that's kind of what you have to do in those hard moments too. I mean, it feels like that's good writing. Like, horror movies use it all the time. There's humor in between all the scary stuff, you know. Or like when our characters are about to die, like Riker grabs the sword and he just falls, and then he's like, "No, the hilt!" And he pulls out. There's a phaser, and you didn't use it. Swords are fun.
Yeah.
I mean, those are great moments. But like, the first 2/3 of this episode were all action. I'm cool with it. I had fun. I didn't have a lot of emotional stake in it, and I didn't care one bit about Jack / Fox. Still.
Well, regarding the action sequences, we were right about the space dock not being part of fleet formation. That space dock, though, has some impressive defenses. If it can, put away an entire fleet.
I thought that was good. Like, I was like, wow, it's still standing when they got back.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that the space dock seemed to be controlling a force field around the planet Earth.
Yeah, it's never come up before until it was needed.
I know that it came up in Discovery when they went to the future and tried to go back to Earth, and there were planetary defenses, but
yeah,
I'd never seen it here. I have to assume that the shields, I think in Discovery, the Earth shields were up by default, and I think in Picard, they probably only go on when under attack.
Yeah, in DS9, there were mentioned of planetary defenses for Earth when the Dominion attacked Earth, but we never got to see that, I don't think.
Remind me, in DS9, I know that the Changelings infiltrated Starfleet. Was there an actual, Dominion ships attacking the planet?
Yeah, when the Breen joined, their first thing was to attack San Francisco.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And they all died they all were destroyed there, but you see, like, the San Francisco bridge all beat up and everything, and...
beat up. Poor San Francisco bridge.
Oh.
I thought it was interesting that fleet formation only affects line of sight. Because they were saying that, the Enterprise D, it's the only ship that isn't connected to this new fleet formation. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Any ship that didn't show up for Frontier Day would be unaffected as well. They just couldn't go into the Sol system. So when Seven said, we are the last of Starfleet, we are Starfleet, I was like, well, there's also that ship over in the Beta Quadrant. I'm sure they're fine.
Oh, I guess, see, I just assuming, like, they said all of Starfleet is here.
Right.
And so...
right.
Silly. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm inclined to agree and take that literally, and that there are no ships in the Beta Quadrant. But if, for example, they decided, you know what, we really can't leave the neutral zone undefended. Let's leave one ship out there. If they did that, they didn't say that they did, but if they did, then that one ship is fine.
And they got more. Remember, the Federation has thousands of ships in it that aren't Starfleet, which is hard because the show is always about the Starfleet aspect of it. No matter how much they say Federation / Starfleet, it's easy to kind of combine the two because they're the most prominent force in there. And so I guess, okay, sure, the rest of the Federation was on duty that day. Okay.
That's true. What the Borg assimilated wasn't the UFP, it was Starfleet.
Yeah.
A big difference. Starfleet is, I would hope, the minority of the UFP.
I don't know. Humans like to populate.
Yeah. It was cool that they got to use the cloaking device again for more significant use, because previously, they popped in by Days from Station cloaked for 5 seconds, and that was it. So here it actually had more plot relevance as opposed to just being, a cool callback to the one with the whales.
Yeah. I like how I'm just jumping ahead. Let's see. That was neat. They also said they're using the algorithm to track us. I'm like, well, then don't be predictable.
Yeah, I was wondering how can you tell that? How do you know exactly what method they're using to track you?
I mean, they're computers, I guess, at this point. I mean, Seven would have also know like what's going on with the synchronization. She's been working Starfleet for a bit, so
Mhm.
she would have some details. But it's just like, okay, sure, I'll just sit back and enjoy the ride.
Yeah. It was impressive, however, that they were able to reclaim as much ship functionality as they did because they locked the transporter room. They were able to broadcast messages. They activated the cloaking device. These are all things that the collective had not assimilated.
Uh-huh.
Very convenient.
Yeah, right. Well, it's the thing. They also weren't assimilating ships, or assimilating in the sense that we used to. They weren't assimilating. Period.
That's true. It was just a technological takeover, not a transformation.
Yeah, yeah.
And we still don't really know how they did that. Like, we know that like the transporter DNA changeling jack transmission, but we don't know fleet formation equals assimilation.
I mean, there's a lot of implied stuff there. Changelings have been working for a while. Who knows their evil machinations? Just a lot of implication there without actually telling us.
Yeah.
You put the pieces together, and I didn't need the pieces together. I'm like, okay, sure. You somehow connived everyone to get all the ships together and to use this new UI. You convinced Shelby this is an awesome idea.
Well, it's just funny because we had all those lines of exposition at the beginning of the episode, and now here are all these things you and I are saying like they didn't spell these other things out. So I wonder how they decide. Oh, the audience needs to be told this, but they can infer that.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder what that selection process is like.
I would not want to be in that writer's room because I'd just be like, no.
The chef is actually a pretty good pilot.
Yeah. I loved how he was just rambling about his cousin got a hernia and he had to run the deli and whatever. And I was reminded very much of Mott from TNG, the barber, who showed up in multiple episodes, but he was not a main character, but he was very memorable.
Yeah. And we got to see Dr. Oak. I thought she disappeared. Like, why did they get rid of their chief medical officer? And all of a sudden, here she's back again, running.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I recognized her from previous episodes, but I forgot who she was. But that was cool. I like the cross training that these cast members have.
Let's see. We found out where Jack ran to. Wasn't very far at all.
Jupiter. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember where the Titan was when he ran away. I don't think we knew. I don't think it mattered. But yeah, just a transwarp conduit in Jupiter. Why not?
Who's going in there, really?
So in the 2009 reboot film in the Kelvin universe, was Jupiter also the planet that the Enterprise warped into and we saw it making a dramatic rise out of the clouds, or was that Saturn?
I remember I thought it was Saturn. Sounds familiar. But I know what you're talking about. I just can't picture what it was real quick off the top of my head.
We have some very convenient planets in our solar system.
We do. There's lots of people could just hide out there. We've had like in the past we talk about places like Jupiter Station and whatnot existing, and so okay, no one noticed the Borg cube shoving its nose out the big red spot. Sure, okay.
Well, it wasn't there until it started transmitting, until Jack showed up.
Yeah.
At that point, all eyes were on Frontier Day, and they weren't scanning the solar system, I guess.
Yeah.
Or maybe there was, whenever convenient and needed, there's interference.
Always.
Yeah.
Got to see the big swirly thing that I mentioned last week. Like, what was that big thing? It's like, this is our plot point to blow up. The big swirly green thing.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to see the heart of the Borg cube, which is their beacon, as they call it. And I guess that's also why there are all these pointy things sticking out the side of the Borg cube. Those were like the
antennas.
Right. Because, that's how Borg work, is on radio frequencies. Why not?
It gives us a visualize. Okay, yeah, so it's clearly a transmitter. I guess so. Cool. I know I kind of feel like I'm dumping on it. I actually really enjoyed this episode a lot. I had fun. How about that?
That's the first I've heard you say that, when you were saying like, oh, it was all action movie, blah blah blah. I didn't think the way you were sort of dismissing it, I thought you didn't enjoy it.
No. I just meant I didn't have a lot to talk about in the first two thirds, other than there's quips, there were some funny things, kind of neat things, but the real meat of the episode was the last third of it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't time exactly where it happens, but when they divide the TNG crew, 3 people go down to the cube and 4 people stay on the ship. I very much empathize with Data in that moment, because in Star Trek First Contact, he was partly assimilated, and I suspected that his presence on the Borg cube would be invaluable. As it turned out, none of this episode would have been possible without him piloting the ship. But I was surprised when they said, no, Data, we need you here on the ship, because I really thought he would go down to the Borg cube too.
And yeah, it turned out, everybody's skills got useful here. Like Data, I love this pattern they showed him, like, someone's got to walk that? And like, no, they're like, someone's got to fly that. Like, holy crap, we got to have our own trench run.
Yes.
It's neat to see the Enterprise fly like that.
Yeah, this was just like in Return of the Jedi when they went through the fully functional or fully operational Death Star. We've never seen the Enterprise D move like that. So I watched this episode last night, Hello from Australia, and it was just this morning that I remembered throughout the entirety of TNG, they weren't using CGI for the ships. They were using models. And so this is the first time we've seen a CGI version of the Enterprise D. And that is why this is the first time we've seen it move like that, because they couldn't move a physical prop like that before.
The closest we had before was like, a few scenes stand out to me. One was in Relics, when they need to get by the Genelin. It's blocking the shield in the Dyson sphere. They turn it sideways. I think there was an episode where it spins, or they have they filmed it going very slow, so it could speed it up, so it looks like it's spinning away. But on a few occasions, like the visual of me going slowly around in circles with my finger. But yeah, we really couldn't get that before. It was really cool, especially the ending when they did the what felt like Star Trek the experience, where the Enterprise has this butt coming in, flying overhead of the Borg chamber there, and then like flies overhead, slides in, beam the crew off, and boof out.
Except that scene, I feel like it took them a long time to get that transporter lock. I felt like those 4 people on the Borg cube were just looking up for a long time.
I think that I was hoping that they used that, that they call it the holodeck set, where they actually filmed, like made the Enterprise so the crew could actually see what the Enterprise above them. I hope they did that so they could actually see and react to that, because it was so cool.
When you say the holodeck set, you mean the technology they used to film The Mandalorian?
Yeah, they use that in Star Trek too.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they call it the holodeck. Colloquially, it actually has a real name, but
which is a little confusing when talking about a Star Trek episode.
Yeah, I mean they use it on Discovery. I hope they used it on this episode, but they're filming in LA, so maybe they didn't. We'll see, because I think all that stuff is in Canada.
Oh, the Canadians get the holodecks before we do. Yeah. I don't know why. That's not fair.
I mean, it's been a few years. They probably have some in LA now.
But Canadians are supposed to be nice and share stuff.
Oh yeah,
like maple syrup.
Swords are fun. I thought, like, the only person I thought I was kind of worried about losing was Worf when he kept getting shot by the Borg zombies.
Yeah, there was a scene where both Borgs were just shooting at point blank and they cut away. And I thought to myself, how is Worf just not being pummeled by that? Fortunately, he had gotten behind some cover. But yeah, that did not look promising for our favorite Klingon's fate.
And then zombie Borg are creepier than Borg.
Yeah, so we know that the Borg have not been heard from in 10 years, but this seems almost like a direct follow-up to what Admiral Janeway did to them in Endgame, which was back 100%. In 2001.
100%. Janeway did basically defeat the Borg.
Yeah, so I wonder what the last instance of Borg encounter was like 10 years ago, because 10 years ago would have been 12 years after Janeway poisoned them.
And Prodigy happened in there somewhere.
Oh, that's right. The Borg are in there. I forgot about that. They had a Borg episode.
So all we know is at that point, the Borg were dwindling more and more and more and more.
Wow.
And so,
this reminded me, I think it was the movie Alien 3.
Never did see
where
it, I know about it.
Well, the alien queen, historically, the reproduction cycle of the alien, capital A, is face hugger, implant egg into a human, new alien pops out. And in Alien 3, the alien basically integrated with some human DNA so that they can directly procreate without the human as an intermediary host. And it sounds like that's what the Borg Queen wanted in this episode, was the ability to procreate and evolve as opposed to assimilate.
Yeah. That's what she said.
Which is weird because now I'm envisioning all those unfortunate 25-year-old Starfleet cadets being assimilated, and the goal is for them to get pregnant.
Sounds like some fanfic ready to be written, Ken.
No. I mean, I know what's going to happen, but I don't want to read it, and I definitely don't want to write it. That is not my jam.
All right, it'll be up to me.
Have at it. And this was where the Transporter Law cast divided. Join Sabriel's new podcast next month.
Smut Trek. Let's see. But Zombie Borg Queen. Really terrifying. It was voiced by Alice, but played by someone else.
Jane Edwina Seymour.
Yeah.
Is the body double. Yep.
Off the top of my head. But wow, what a creepy look.
Yeah. She was mostly animatronic, I presume.
I don't know. It had someone in there at some point. So. Yeah,
I mean, Jane Edwina Seymour was the body double according to the credits, but I don't know that she was actually like up on stage moving, because that thing did not look alive. And I think that was the point.
It was cool to see the Alice Craig Borg Queen again. She was still evil. She thought she was the mother. This very fits like Queen, the imagery, Queen, the hive thing. Everything kind of fit there. And man, this is a long plan. Like one day, I hope Jean-Luc will have a kid.
Yeah, I think it's one of like many irons in the fire. They put this plan into effect, hoping maybe someday they would be able to use it, and if not, it's fine, because the Borg are at that point in the Borg's timeline when Locutus was created. The Borg were on the upswing, like they were assimilating left and right. They didn't expect they would ever need a transmitter, so this was just sort of a, hey, if we can add this to our arsenal, that would be great. But yeah, I gotta wonder. It kind of dismisses the value of the mother's DNA. Like I assume that whatever they implanted in Locutus was engineered to be genetically dominant, so fine. But did it matter with whom Picard had a kid?
No, I don't think so. They didn't care about that part.
Yeah, and from the Borg perspective, that makes total sense. But from a social justice warrior perspective, I'm like, oh, the woman doesn't matter. Great.
Yeah, it's biology, I guess.
Yeah, as engineered by a cybernetic organism.
Right.
Yeah.
Then the latter third of the movie, unless there's anything more you want to add in there. Let's see.
I mean, I might come back.
Drones. What's that?
I might come back to something. I don't know, but
okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about the last third.
Oh, Vox looked like a 1990s Borg.
Yeah.
I think that was intentional.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know why they felt the need to put a suit on him, because he did not appear to be biologically modified. Like, he didn't have an eye implant or anything. He had the little red laser, like Locutus had, but...
That was totally for Locutus effect. Like, you're just like Dad!
Aw, Locutus Jr.
We got to see Jean-Luc shove a Borg thing in his neck. Like, okay, I guess the Golem has no problem connecting to this interface as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's a positronic being, so of course he can interface. And I thought that was weird when Crusher said, some part of you must still be compatible. And I was like, really? And also, you would think that the Borg Queen, even if her cube is dying, would still have some control over her ship. And like, I can't imagine somebody going to the Borg cube and saying, like, assimilate me. And the cube is like, no, you are insufficient. You will be inferior to our collective. And the person is like, I don't care. I'm going to get assimilated anyway. Jackson. It's like, you would think that the cube could say, let's cut off this interface. Let's not have this drone interact with us.
See, the Borg never really learned their own lesson about network and connectivity.
It's true. It's true.
They Starfleet learned it.
Well, I guess that even goes back to Hugh, because he introduced individuality into the Borg cube, and they should have quarantined him, recognized that he was not the kind of drone they wanted in their collective, and cut him off. And they couldn't do that with Hugh. They couldn't do it with Locutus in this episode.
Yeah. Oh,
Weird.
Queen said she worked with the changelings because they understood losing a generation to Starfleet as well. Like, okay. It's a little weird, but hey, villains gotta work together. I still don't understand talking floating head thing and how she can control Vadic, but I guess it doesn't matter.
And also, the changelings didn't lose anybody to Starfleet. They ultimately got cured.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't lose it. Unless I'm misremembering something. Like, I don't remember that many changelings dying.
That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, unless I'm forgetting something, I don't remember it happening.
No, I think your memory on this point is spot on, Sabriel. And I don't understand that line. I also would like to see, even if it was like in a flashback. I don't think Borg queens generally have flashbacks, but I would love to see that initial encounter between the Borg and the changelings, like who initiated it, and was it a detente? I don't know how to say that word. It's sort of the enemy of my enemy kind of thing. Like, were the Borg and the changelings fighting each other, and they were like, you know what, we each have a greater foe. Let's call a truce. I don't know. I would just love to read that backstory in a novel somewhere.
Oh, recapturing the Titan. They use a little transporter gun, and they're like, oh, hey, you might have invented the thing that they're going to use in Discovery.
The portable beam me up.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they were shooting those cadets, I wasn't clear what was happening. I thought maybe the cadets were beaming away as opposed to allowing themselves to be shot. And then when they explained what was happening, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Good job, Rafi.
Yeah, I was a little confused at first, and I kind of like, okay, I was pretty sure, I was like, but the first half of that bridge scene, I could think they're beaming them. I was like, I'm not sure what's going on. Are they beaming themselves away? But then I'm like, okay, I think our crew is the one doing the beaming. And then they showed us. And I was like, that was not clear at first.
Yeah, I agree. And since we're jumping around a little bit, one other thing I forgot was one of my favorite scenes was when LaForge said to Crusher, I didn't have time to work on the weapon, so you're going to have to do it manually.
Oh, yeah. I was going to mention this. I forgot. That was so cool.
And she just devastated the surface of the Borg cube, and everybody on the bridge, which is only 3 people at this point, stop and look at her. And she's like, a lot's happened in the last 20 years. Because she's a doctor. I mean, I know that she passed the test to be a commander and she can control the ship, but you generally don't expect somebody with a Hippocratic oath to have that mastery of weapons.
A lot of stuff's happened.
I like this side of Crusher. I didn't feel like she was a very strong character the rest of the season, but that one scene was awesome.
Plus, I concur. Finish your thought there. And then also got to see Troy doing some fancy flying, saving the Enterprise from crashing and getting them out and all that stuff. Basically, she didn't crash a ship. I think her honor was redeemed for what happened in Viridian. Yeah.
Wait, so when she did some flying, you're talking about when she knew where to find the 4 people on the Borg cube?
Yeah. She's like, she took over whatever she was doing. Yeah.
So I've mentioned how I've been very emotional this entire season, and there were more tears this episode. One specific moment, not the only moment, but one specific moment was when Riker said to Imzadi, I'll be waiting for you with our son. That was really hard to hear. And I did not, like, I predicted last week on this podcast that nobody was going to die, and that proved to be true. Well, except for the Borg Queen and stuff. But there were moments, like we mentioned, with Worf getting shot. I knew that the 4 of them, that was too many people on the Borg cube to die. They were going to get saved somehow, but it doesn't change the fact that from their perspective, they had accepted their own death. Worf did. Like he said, there was one moment earlier today where I was worried we were actually going to survive. And Riker is saying goodbye to everybody, and that stuff gets me, even though I know it's not true. They don't know that.
Mm-hmm. I love that line. That was fun. Other than Worf, I don't think I thought anyone was going to die. I didn't worry too much. No, it was just me. That's just me.
Yeah.
I was afraid it was going to happen, but I wasn't really worried it was going to happen.
I think there was a little too much levity in various moments, like the part where Riker said, "Do you even hear yourself?" And also when Data was like, he said, "My gut tells me I can do this. You have to trust me," and they did. And then Deanna follows up with, "Why am I sensing enjoyment?" And then you just see this smirk on Data's face because he's enjoying it, and his hands were moving really fast, and they were like crossing each other like some sort of hyper pianist. And
I was looking for a song.
Life forms.
All right, should we get the last 2/3 here in our last third? Our last third and our last third?
Well, a little bit more is the part where we talked about Picard jacking in and then talking to Jack. That's, I didn't mean for that play on words. This reminds me of the Robin Williams film What Dreams May Come. Have you seen it?
I did, but I think I fell asleep partway through. I don't remember anything.
It's based on a book by Richard Matheson, and the movie is great, but it's also very dramatic, like more so than it needs to be. And anyway, the end scene, spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen What Dreams May Come, is basically Robin Williams goes into hell to retrieve his wife's soul, and she refuses to leave because she's too trapped in her own depression. And so he says, "Fine, if you're not leaving, neither am I." So he chooses to stay in hell with her, and she snaps out of it. And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm okay with punishing myself by letting me stay here, but I can't let the person I love, my husband, stay here." And she snaps out of it, and they both leave. And that kind of felt like what was happening here. Like Picard was saying, "If you're not going, I'm not going either." And he gives him a hug, and Jack is like, he has all these flashbacks from the last week that he's known his dad. and he's like, comes up with a big breath like he's been drowning, and he saves everybody. I really thought that Jack, because he had said, "I'm going to go to the Borg Queen for answers and show her who I truly am." And I really thought that he was going to turn this around somehow and take control of the beacon. And I was disappointed by how much Jack needed Jean-Luc to save him.
Dear old dad.
Yeah.
Man, he just met. Yeah. I'm sorry. I just don't have a lot of feelings toward Jack.
Yeah, he's not my favorite, and I don't blame the actor whatsoever. I thought he did a great job with it. The character was too petulant for me, too brash. And I mean, granted, brash can also describe Seven of Nine, but she has more experience. And so when she makes a brash decision, it's informed by all that she has had in her life. And Jack, he's just a 20 to 25-year-old nobody, really. And, teenager's gonna teenager.
Yeah. Or 32-year-old, 25-year-old, or 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh, Jack got a field, or what? Went from cadet to ensign in a year.
Yeah. That's believable.
Okay. Lots of people do that.
I thought it was powerful when Geordi's daughter became unassimilated and she started crying, because that is the appropriate reaction.
Right. And Seven holding her very motherly like / I understand exactly what you're going through.
Yeah, I felt like there were a lot of hugs in this episode, and they were all very intentional. Like Seven hugging Geordi's daughter, Jack getting hugged by Jean-Luc, and then at the end, Worf hugging Rafi. Like, Worf, personal space is a privilege, and he is not a hugger, and here he is initiating.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked the hugs because it wasn't casual; it was meaningful.
I agree. I hadn't thought of it that way, and I agree.
We got to see Admiral Tim Russ.
Yeah, this is a scene where I actually reacted because I love 7 or 9 so much. Like, this is the one that first really got me. Just like seeing her get promoted, just right here in the feels. I honestly forgot that I had mentioned last week that it's like he's coming back, and somebody showed up. I was like, "Oh, that's right, forgot."
Yeah, I really liked this. I didn't know that she was going to get promoted to captain. I did not see that coming.
I was like, she has to. I figured.
I don't know. I mean, she was really divided, and last season she seemed like she was ready to quit. Was she even in Starfleet last season? No.
She took control. She took command basically of the Titan in the last episode a little bit, but and they were like, "That chair look good on you," or something like that. When Gerardi Borg was doing her thing, Seven basically kind of took over.
That's right. Picard gave her a field commission in the final episode. Because I was trying to remember, Rios was captain of the Titan. I was trying to remember who his number one was, but it wasn't Seven. Why was Seven even on that ship?
Everyone, Seven had gotten there because of green thing in space appeared, and she went to go to check it out, and the Titan was there.
That's right.
It's like, hey, why don't you come on board and get our plot going? She's like,
that's right.
You got it, old friend.
Thanks for the reminder. I'd forgotten.
No problem.
But yeah, it was nice to see Tuvok. It was nice to see one last appearance of Captain Shaw, even after he died in recording. It was nice to see Seven crying at his words.
I was talking to my friend Shar, who's been on here before, about that scene. It's like all the name dropping of Janeway this season. I thought she might make an appearance, but knowing Jerry Ryan and Kate Mulgrew's past, I'm like, you know what? Tuvok and Seven had a very close relationship as well. I think this works even better.
In my notes here, I have Walter Koenig, Tim Russ, no Admiral Janeway. I was like, yeah, they should not have mentioned her at all. It was just a weird tease.
And she's got her own show in Prodigy now, so
that's true.
So they kept name dropping her, but I think it worked better with Tuvok. They had a close relationship. We even got to see Tuvok do a little smirk, his little Vulcan smirk.
Yes.
It was a beautiful scene. And seeing Shaw, like you mentioned, apparently Metalis said that he has ideas to get Shaw on more shows if it comes to it, and he didn't clarify what that meant, but he had ideas or something like that.
Weird. And yeah, I agree. If Admiral Janeway had shown up, I would have expected her primary interaction to be with Picard, a fellow admiral. I would not expect Janeway and Seven to have a meaningful scene together.
Yeah. Raffi, you mentioned a hug with Worf. Her family's talking to her after Worf leaked a bunch of news information about how much of a hero she is. She finally gets to see her granddaughter.
Whoever leaked that data is a very honorable man.
I wonder who it was. They didn't give me enough to go on.
No, it was too subtle for me.
A great little finale for that story. That's kind of building for all 3 years. Like, our characters actually kept Laris. Got some finality. Laris. Which I'm really happy that they got to have their finale, unlike Laris.
When Picard was in the collective talking to Jack, and he said how he was just waiting for himself to die on that vineyard because he thought part of him was broken or missing, and he didn't realize that Jack was the part of him that was missing all along, the family that he always wanted. What was the whole second season about?
To me, I took that as everything up to the first season. I didn't tie that to second season at all.
But I feel like Picard felt that he was still missing something up until he met Jack. But I'm like, you finally allowed yourself to be loved by Laris. You finally opened up that part of yourself, and that still wasn't enough. You still need a kid.
See, I didn't. I was like, I know what he means. But for a long time, he was just sitting there, and this last thing with Laris, this little fling with Laris, like, is important to him. But he meant he was just trying to relate to Jack, not to except for that 1 year.
Was your word choice of fling deliberate?
No, it was just. I mean, I used it, but I meant like they had a thing. I still ship them.
Well, right. I mean, they are a couple, Picard and Laris, and now this is going to be quite the wrinkle in their relationship when he shows up and is like, "Oh, by the way, I have a son."
Oh, I don't think so. Laris is so laid back.
I hope so,
like,
but
no. You know what's going to happen the next time the crew gets together? John Luke's going to be like, "Here's my girlfriend Beverly, and here's my girlfriend Laris, and my son Jack."
We need more than Dr. Phlox to demonstrate polyamory. That needs to be more evidenced in the future.
Exactly.
But I could see how discovering Jack is in his life could reconnect him with Beverly, and maybe they're just co-parents, or maybe they rekindle a flame, which they clearly had.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to rekindle, but we're never going to know.
Nope. No, we won't.
Uh, Data working through things with Troy. It was neat. I mean, it's a kind of neat little scene. I like how she's like, he's already an hour over, so at this point, she's just looking at vacation ideas, and not actually.
And Riker comes in and asks if he's still bat crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but I was like, I don't want to make you have to bleep.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. On the other hand, mental health, going to see a therapist doesn't make you crazy. So, but it was funny because it's Data.
It was fun.
And,
it's good that Data actually had the opportunity to talk about feelings. And he definitely needs, Shar said he needs a new cat. And I said, yes, someone to talk to about his feelings when Deanna's not available. Yes,
he needs another spot. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So it took them a year to put the Enterprise D back into the museum. Because it said 1 year later, and that's when they decommissioned her again. I wonder what the ship was doing in that year.
Making it all spick and span. They had to clean off all the crash damage from Meridian 3. They had to polish it up. All that jazz.
I don't know. It looked pretty good when it was flying around this last episode.
Oh, you got to watch closer.
Did it escape from the Borg cube with a few scuffs on it?
Oh, no. Even before it went in there, it was still this beat up state. It was just flyable.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Okay.
The logo intro changed. The little Trek logo that they put on the front. It was the Enterprise D, and then the Borg cube, and then the Borg assimilated the logo.
So there have been subtle changes throughout the season. Sometimes you could see the Shrike in the background.
Oh, I missed that. That's cool.
This week was the least subtle change, but you're right. It was very noticeable.
That was neat. But
when they were decommissioning the Enterprise D, and Majel Barrett's voice comes on, and Riker says, "I miss that voice."
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, they weren't talking about the computer voice. We all miss Majel Barrett, and I was reminded of the final episode of Cheers, where as Sam is walking back to his office, he straightens that picture that used to hang in Coach's room, and that was his nod to that actor who passed away.
Yeah, sweet little thing.
Yeah.
When they rechristened the Titan, what name did you think was going to appear when they came up over the bow?
The USS Picard.
Yeah, so did I. I was like 75% Picard, 25% Enterprise. And nope, it was Enterprise G.
Which makes no sense to me because they said we know you don't like fanfare. I was like, so that implies to me it's named after him. It would also be fitting with the name of the show because then you could we had Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Enterprise. It's always the name of the ship. And so you could do another season of Picard without the character because now it's about the ship, the USS Picard. And I don't understand why they didn't do that. I don't understand what happened to the Enterprise F.
Oh, that ship, the Enterprise F, the Frontier Day ceremony was its decommissioning. It was in service for 10, 15 years.
That was its decommissioning?
Uh-huh.
I missed that. Did they say that?
I think it was mentioned in the show, but then also, if you might remember 2 months ago, I mentioned also this cool little thing on Instagram and I think Twitter called Star Trek Logs.
Yep.
They talked about how the Enterprise E stopped Borg from putting first contact with Vulcan's final mission classified, and then it went to the F Odyssey class, launched in committed by several captains, 15 for the last 15 years. Scheduled for decommissioning after critical systems were compromised during the Monfet Gambit, whatever that is, and then it goes in the last line of it is Enterprise F's final flight will be on display during this year's Frontier Day.
Well, thank you for clarifying that because I had misunderstood either something I read online or something that came up in this podcast. I thought Admiral Shelby was debuting the Enterprise F. And so at the end of this week's episode, I was like, oh, that ship had a very short life. It was only in service for either 1 year or it got destroyed on Frontier Day and we somehow missed that. Or because Shelby died, they're like, oh, that ship is off to a bad start. Let's just skip that one.
The Enterprise F was actually turned out to be one of the longest running Enterprises.
Huh.
And we never saw we only saw a good 1 minute of it.
Do we know who the captain was?
It just said several captains.
Okay. Which makes sense because, we had Robert April, Christopher Pike, and Captain Kirk, so sure. That makes sense.
Enterprise, the first one might have been, not the NX. 10701 might be the only other ship to rival the length in service.
And not only did the ship get rechristened, but it got 7 of 9 as a captain.
Uh-huh. I love that. A thief, a pirate, and a spy have their own ship.
Yeah, I love it. Now imagine that it is the year 2001. It's 22 years ago. Voyager has just gone off the air. And I tell you, 7 of 9 is going to be captain of the next Enterprise. Like, oh yeah, that's fanfic. That's never going to happen. And here we are, 22 years later, and our former Borg, who was retrieved from the collective in the 2-part episode Scorpion, is now like Captain Picard's successor on the Enterprise.
That's pretty awesome.
It is unpredictable, unlikely, and awesome.
I was rereading an interview with Jerry Ryan from a few days ago, and she's like, she never thought she was going to play 7 of 9 ever again. She was done with Star Trek. That character kind of was lots of bad memories for her between the sex outfits and her relationship with Kate Mulgrew. She was ready to be over with it. And then they approached her for Picard. She's like, and with their ideas, and she's like, okay.
Yeah,
she liked what they had to say, and I'm so glad for it.
I'm glad she got over her reasonable objections, because what they've done with this character in the last 3 seasons is amazing. And when you talk about potential spin-offs, this is one that I want to see. I don't know what they're going to call it. I love that she's Captain 7 of 9, not Captain Hansen. I want to talk about the bar scene, but since we're currently on the Enterprise, let's talk about a little bit out of order. There was a sequence at the end where Jack is unpacking in his cabin.
Yeah, I did not expect that. I did not expect Q to show up.
I did not expect it, and I did not like it.
That's what Shar had the same reaction. I loved it. Why didn't you like it? And I'll tell you what I told Shar. What I you were going to say.
Well, I have 2 reasons. I don't know what Shar said, so I'm going to give you 2. So one of them I hope is unique. One is Star Trek Picard, Season 1, final episode. They kill Data.
Okay.
Star Trek Picard, Season 2, final episode. They kill Q. Star Trek Picard, Season 3, they bring back Data and Q. Deaths are meaningless in this show, and I don't like that.
That has always been the case in Star Trek.
I know, but I especially don't like it. And when they bring them back so soon. And the other reason I don't like it is because we've only had 3 seasons of Picard. And the Borg were the villain in basically all of them. And Q was the villain in like 2 of them. I know I'm exaggerating with his final appearance, but like I know that Picard by definition is all about the callbacks and the fan service, but can we set up something original, please? I mean, Jack has no history with Q. Jack has a history of wanting to assimilate the entire human race. Let's see how he works through that. He's the one who should be talking to Counselor Troy.
Right? I guess we don't know.
All right. So what did Shar say?
That's what I was just pulling up. Shar basically is like, felt like, at that point anyway, it kind of made his death meaningless in season 2. Or whatever his version of death is. And I had said, of course, now I can't find that conversation, so I'm just going to recap best I can off the top of my head. Even though a big part of Q's goodbye in season 2 was some version of whatever's coming next for him, I don't think his goodbye really revolved around that. I think it was more of just a goodbye to Jean-Luc. Basically, to me, his quote-unquote death, even if it was the plot point of everything, really mattered in the end to make us care about this thing with Q and Jean-Luc. I think it was just a goodbye. So to me, it didn't cheapen his quote-unquote death or something like it. I was like, all right, on to the next adventure. We don't know what death is for Q's. And even as he said, I was like, this is a very Q thing to say. He thinks so linearly. I thought the next generation would not think so linearly in a straight line. Linearly. There we go. Linearly.
The Q we saw here might not have died yet, because he exists beyond time. And so I get that. But he said how gods have favorites and Picard has always been one of his. But if he wants to say goodbye to Picard, why insert himself into his son's life?
He's done with Jean-Luc.
I don't think he is, because Jack is now going to go to Dad and say, hey, I just saw Q. And Picard's like, what? I thought he was done with us.
No, he's just going to say, be careful.
Yeah.
He's not going to do anything. He's not going to say Q and shake his fist up in the air. He's just going to say, Jack, I have just one lesson. Be careful when it comes to Q. And he means well, but he's an idiot.
Shall we talk about the scene in 10 forward?
Let's see. Oh, transporter to purge the Borg infection. Apparently, it was kind of a nod back to Pulaski being cured of the old age virus, which is kind of
yep.
I never would have made a connection until someone else said it.
Yep.
7 of 9's hit it / engage / let's ride. I can tell you exactly what it is.
How do you know?
Because it's just a very 7 thing to say.
What'd she say?
Fun will now commence.
I like it. I like that they built it up, because they did the same thing with Saru in Discovery, and he tried various ones, and he's like, execute. We're like, what? Really? Oh.
Yeah, it's become the joke in all the Star Treks now, is to have a thing. I think Boimler even had to worry about it too, if I recall correctly.
Let's fly.
And we got to see what was it. Rikers was like, and jazz it up or something like that in 7, 8 or something. I don't remember exactly, but they all had their thing. And you could see Jerry Ryan's face giggling when she just went to, and I'm sure she said something goofball like Spaceballs or something like that. But when they cut away.
Engagement is futile.
Apparently the point of order, she wanted to steal the captain's chair so much because she would spin and spin and spin because it spun so easily, apparently. She loved that captain's chair so much. So
wow, I had no idea she was so childish. And I mean, that's a compliment.
Love a spinny chair?
I don't blame her whatsoever. No, I love her too.
Okay. Saying toast to each other in Guinan's bar when they didn't even bring back Guinan.
Yeah, they mentioned her. Yep. That was frustrating. But, there have been so many manufactured scenes with just the 7 of them.
Yeah. Okay, but Guinan's been side-eyeing us for the last half hour. I'm like, come on, get Whoopi Goldberg over here and just say, hey.
If they had Whoopi Goldberg and Will Wheaton, then they could say that the other 7 people that we've been focusing on are 7 of 9. Sorry.
But yeah, still, I love this scene.
Why?
It was fun. It was a nice little, and the ending was a nice little homage to the All Good Things. It was just fun to see them banter and BS with each other. And toast. And then once was a woman from Venus.
We'll never get to hear Data finish that Nantucket limerick or whatever it was. But I loved Picard's quote from Julius Caesar. I figured that was Shakespeare as soon as he started talking.
I figured it was. I didn't look it up. I got Shakespeare.
Yeah, it's something Brutus said. It was very fitting. And watching this episode, I didn't have any expectations of how it was going to end. And if they had not ended with playing poker, then I think a day or a week later, I would have thought, I'm disappointed that they didn't end that way. It would not have occurred to me at the time, but eventually it would have hit me, and it would have seemed incomplete. And so the fact that they did that, it fulfilled a need I didn't know I had. And I really like that. It was also probably the longest cut in the entire Picard series.
Right? Just camera spinning and spinning and spinning.
Yeah, because so many scenes are chop, chop, chop. And this one was just let them play for as long as they want, and we'll just keep filming. And I liked that. I liked that a lot. And this is also actually another reason why I didn't like the scene between Jack and Q. This is my third reason. Mm-hmm. Because I wanted the series to end with them playing poker, just like in All Good Things.
Not the after little teaser.
Yeah, that was not the time and place for it, I thought. But yeah, it was great to see everybody back together, and I'm glad that they are happy and healthy and well. And one of my favorite series finales ever was Cheers, because I felt like, to contrast that, I'll briefly go on a tangent with Seinfeld. Seinfeld, I mean, those characters never grew in all the years they were on the show, and I hated that. And they ultimately got punished for being who they were. They were thrown in jail. Whereas with Cheers, I felt like everybody got rewarded, and we had the sense that everybody was going to be okay. We weren't going to see them anymore because the show was over, but they were going to be okay. And I kind of feel like that's true for this show as well. Like, well, the Rikers will never get their son back, of course, but I feel like they're moving toward a place of healing, and they're together again, and they're talking. Data's alive. And yeah, I like I like where this show brought everybody.
Yeah, we got some good finality. Better than Nemesis ever could have done.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting word choice you just used, finality. Sometimes it means like the end of something, and in Nemesis that meant somebody's death. Like there's no more of that character. And this episode, it's also a finality because we're not going to see any more of those characters, but there's also a continuation. And I like that there is continuation, just finality of our awareness of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's rank the seasons of Picard.
Oh, okay. Backwards order, 1, 2, 3 for me. How about you? We can expand on it in a minute. So it's 3, 2, 1. Seasons 3, 2, 1. My order, or best to worst.
Oh yes. Definitely 3 is the best. Absolutely. There were a couple of weak moments. I think episodes 7 and 10 could have been a little bit stronger, but the other 8 episodes were really good. What?
May I add a comment adding to what you just said about what someone else regarded the season as? I thought it was interesting. I made sure to save this comment so I could share it with you. Because it sounds like you could have written this. The entire season of Picard was like a blanket you had since childhood. Is it the best blanket ever made? No. Would you trade it for any other blanket in the world? Not in your life.
I like blankets. No, that's a great comment. And, I watched the season 3, episode 9 with my friend Peter. And I asked him afterward, did you like it? And he said, I genuinely don't know how to answer that. I mean, it's Star Trek. Of course I liked it. More granularity than that, I don't know. If you're asking me, you shouldn't be asking me if I liked it. You should be asking me how I liked it. I'm like, yeah, like these are the characters I grew up with, and they're all alive and well again. And what more could somebody ask for?
Yeah. I know I haven't seasons 1 and 2, but honestly, in retrospect, like they're kind of on the same level for me. I didn't care about Romulan bad dudes in the first season. A lot of the cast was wasted in season 2. Like I mentioned before, Rios is his plot point. Really, if he would have showed up, things would have worked out better. Not necessarily for the characters, but in the story wise, like everything would have actually worked. Seasons 1 and 2 had some serious problems, but they led to what we got here. And I liked elements of seasons 1 and 2, but this is the best. 3 was my favorite.
Absolutely. There were far more moments in season 3 where I was gasping, shouting, crying. Season 2 especially, the middle 6 episodes, I was just like, okay, come on, whatever, really. Like, we had Jurati eating car batteries. I don't need that in Star Trek, come on. But season 1, yeah, there was a lot of wasted time, like, on the artifact, which was the Borg cube, and like there was a romance happening between a Romulan and an android, and then we have 7 of 9 becoming a Borg queen only to crash the cube. Good job, 7. Yeah. I don't know, just so many missed opportunities in the first 2 seasons, and they introduced all these characters that we ultimately got rid of for season 3. Like we didn't see Elnor or the android woman, whose name I already forgot.
Daj or Soji.
Daj, yeah, yeah,
and also. Elnor was totally Borgified, and we never got to see it.
Right, like was he on the Excalibur when it was destroyed? We don't know. Was he under 25? I don't know how old Romulans are, but yeah, I feel like they spent a lot of time building up characters that none of us really wanted to see. And that's not a slam on the characters. Like, the actor who played Elnor did a great job. Elnor is an interesting character, but they're not why we watch a show called Star Trek Picard.
Right. You know what? I know I was upset about all these characters not coming back for season 3. I don't know what they would have done. And I think I knew that going into it. I don't know what they're going to do. So I'm still disappointed that we got to know these characters for 2 seasons and they just kind of... I mean, we didn't even have Soji in season 2, except for the very first episode. We had Korra, but it wasn't her. We didn't have Laris in season 2, really.
And we had
the front cap.
We had the actor who played Laris feature prominently in season 2.
Yep, but we didn't have we barely had Laris. We didn't have these characters that we were introduced to. We got new ones of a few people. And I was like, we barely had Elnor. We killed him off too until he was brought back.
Yep.
I'm just like, man, like, I know what you're going for then. All right, cool story, bro. But in retrospect, I'm like, man, see what we could have had. And yeah, so 3 is my favorite. 1 and 2 probably tied for roughly but equal to me.
Yeah, I think I may have liked season 1 a little bit more because it had so much potential, and it really, I feel like it focused on the Picard character in a way that made sense. Like, there was one scene in particular where he wanted to divert to the planet where Elnor was, and Raffi was trying to get him not to, and Picard said, "I'm old, I may never come this way again." And just that one scene has informed some of my travels, because I've been on the road for the last 4 years. And last week I had dinner with a friend of mine I hadn't seen in 20 years. And at the end of the evening, I didn't verbalize this to him, but it occurred to me, if this is how often we see each other, then I may never see you again. Like, I'm glad I got to see you tonight, because who knows if I'll ever come this way again. And if I don't, then tonight is goodbye. And Picard put that into words for me in the first season and really made me more aware of it. And so I value the first season because it was a fascinating look at the last years of a person's life. Because he did die at the end of that season. And we got to see him bring back Riker and Troy and have those touching moments together. And we didn't really get that with season 2. Like, characters didn't come back in season 2. We had Brent Spiner playing like evil old him, and Will Wheaton briefly showed up, which was cool. But yeah, so now that I'm thinking about it, I would rank them 3, 1, 2.
Yeah.
The seasons, best to worst.
Season 3 being the worst in gayness. There was all we got was Worf saying when Seven and Raffi are having their little hey Raffi, Worf's made a one-off comment like, I have dealt with people or worked with people who had a breakup before or something like that. And so yeah, I'm glad they got to get married and then still be the first officer and captain. That's my canon.
Do we know? That's your canon. Okay. Well, it kind of reminded me of the Orville, where you have a husband and ex-wife. So hopefully they have put their marital issues aside and they get along.
I'm glad they have. I'm glad they made it. That good last third of the episode was all about how them getting married and being happy together and having adopted Seven meeting her new step grandchild and all these good times.
Headcanon is a wonderful thing.
Real canon. There was a post-credit scene. Anyway, post-credit scene. It's on Archive of Our Own. Stay tuned.
Yep. And this is the spinoff I want to see. Again, unfortunately, it'll mean that Jack will be back, but I just want to see more of Captain 7.
Beautifully said. Yes. They can just drop him off at the first spaceport.
I mean, given the history the Picard series has for introducing characters and then next season forgetting them, why not?
Just write him off like Cara Dune in Star Wars.
So anything else about Picard?
Good.
It was good.
Good.
Yeah, I'm glad that they gave us back our childhood blanket.
And Enterprise, the new Constitution class grew on me. Just like Shaw. No. The very first episode, I was like, I do not like this ship. It is not attractive to me at all. It is not neat. And just like Shaw, how he grew on me through the first whole season, so did that class of ship.
Yeah, I didn't like the Enterprise F, but the Titan. Is that a different class?
The F was an Odyssey.
Odyssey.
G is a Titan.
Right, and the Titan is a what class?
Oh God, it was a new Constitution class.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The Enterprise F did not do it for me. The G is a little bit better. I still miss the D, of course. And I wish that we had gotten to see the D for longer this season. Like, they really only brought it back in time for one episode, and they only rebuilt the one set, which is more than we ever should have expected, because I'll tell you, like I told you last time, I was very surprised. I didn't know this was coming back. And now that it's been back, I wish they were like, let's get some fillers for what happened in that 1 year between when they brought it back and when it was decommissioned again.
Not gonna lie, part of me was looking at the panels in the back wall to see if they ever had randomly placed black squares over the controls and consoles like they had in the actual show. Because when you know about that and how they had to use black squares on those panels so to hide lighting, you will never unsee it. And so part of me was kind of looking and watching and see if they actually put any on, but I didn't see any.
Well, you may know that on the original TNG show, they had to add in those displays in post. So the actors were just looking at blank screens.
Right.
But on this show, they were actually able to use digital displays, so the actors were seeing it in real time.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
I was like totally watching for that because I was just like, I'm a fiend for these things. And so I was like, oh, that's an actual monitor and not just a plexiglass thing with light.
So that is the end of Picard, and Transporter Lock will be back in about a month and a half. We generally only air episodes of the podcast when they're episodes of Star Trek, and Strange New World Season 2 debuts June 15th.
Yeah.
So you and I get about 7 weeks off.
All right, time to cancel your Paramount Plus subscription for a month.
That's true. I wish they would do short treks, and that's kind of where I was going with hoping that they fill in that 1 year of the Enterprise D. They haven't done short treks in a while because they have so much content now that they just expect you to stick around. But even if that was the reason they were creating it, I still like the little morsels of information, especially when it wove into Season 2 of Discovery. Well, Sabriel, it's been a delight watching another season of Picard with you.
Yes.
Until next time.
Fun will now commence.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes and keep your hailing frequencies open by following us on Twitter @TransporterLock or subscribing to our podcast and email newsletter at transporterlock.com.
Okay, we are off to the races.
You're not giving me the da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
Hello and welcome to Transporter Lock. You better keep that in now. Your Captain. Oh gosh. Okay, I'm your host, Captain Sabriel Masson, and joined with me, as always, usually sometimes, my co-host, Chief Engineer Ken Gagney. Hello, Ken.
Hello, Captain Sabriel. We are at the end of the road not taken.
Yes, and we are on the holodeck with the baseball. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you keep that in now. Okay, we are...